Good morning. My name is Stephen York. I'm the pastor of the Stonington United Methodist Church, and I want to welcome those of you who are watching by way of the internet today. And this morning on Independence Day, July 4th, in Stonington, Maine, I'm preaching on the words with liberty and justice for all. I don't know when you learned the Pledge of Allegiance, but it was fairly early on in my public education. And it was customary every morning to begin with the pledge. You know the words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under God was added in the 1950s to the pledge following the McCarthy era. The words, with liberty and justice for all, have captivated my thoughts this Independence weekend. And what a weekend it is, isn't it? It's wonderful weather. You know, we had the parade yesterday. We had the fireworks. Some of us had primo seats watching the fireworks on Main Street. It was just glorious. And then today is another beautiful day. And then the legal holiday isn't even till tomorrow. So it's hard to really know which day to say Happy 4th of July. So I'm going to say it to you today, Happy 4th of July. But the words, with liberty and justice for all, are critical. There are three components to this. First of all is the word liberty. In our tradition, as Protestants, as Christians who come from the Judeo-Christian tradition, we believe that we have free will and the ability to make choices in our lives. That not even God imposes a will upon people. That we have liberty and freedom. And in this country, 234 years ago, when we freed ourselves from England, we guaranteed through the process of the Declaration of Independence and later by the Constitution of the United States and the formation of a federal government and local state governments, we guaranteed ourselves the life, the pursuit of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. And so fundamentally we are concerned about liberty. Liberty is not something that we value until as much as then when we are in a country or a place where perhaps liberty is not present. Then we really know what it means to be free. Then the word justice. One of the things that we hear throughout the Bible is this word justice. It is used interchangeably both in the Old and New Testaments with the word righteousness. And literally it means that people are treating each other well. You know the verses in the Old Testament that many of us never read. You know, all of the laws. And I'm talking about books like Leviticus and Numbers and Deuteronomy. I don't know too many people get up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to read the book of Leviticus this morning and get some inspiration. There are dietary laws. There are all kinds of laws. But ultimately, the Bible in the Old Testament is about doing the right thing. We heard from Psalm 82 this morning, God's concern about the orphan. God's concern about people being mistreated. God's concern about corrupt judges. And God's concern about bribes. God's concern about the homeless and those who are hungry. And throughout the pages of the Old Testament, we hear this longing, the expression for justice. Amos was such a tough passage. I had to think about it twice before I decided I wanted to use it this morning. But if we can understand that this reading from Amos is about God being upset with his people, the people of Israel, for the way that they were treating each other poorly and unjustly. And God, according to Amos, was ticked, and he let everybody know it. Justice or righteousness is doing the right thing, treating people right. The essence of the Old Testament is the law. The law that tells us how we are to behave. In the Old Testament, you can find how to settle property disputes, how wills are supposed to be administered. I mean, there's all kinds of laws in the Old Testament. And then we move into the New Testament, the Christian scriptures, and many people think that it got easier in the New Testament. But Jesus' teaching was radical. He not only said you had to treat people well, but he said things that were so ridiculous, people hated him for it. Like, love your enemy. When was the last time you heard somebody cut loose on that on television? In between, please send me $1,000 on your credit card. Love your enemy. Not just treat them right, but to love them. It's easy, Jesus said, it's easy to love those who are loving, or that you like, or who are most like ourselves. It's difficult to love the other and to extend to them the kind of liberty and justice that they deserve and God wants for them. In our country, when we sing songs like the Star-Spangled Banner, and we sing, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. It's that liberty is not just for me, and it is not just for you, and it is not just for people who are like us, or vote like us, or think like us. It is liberty and justice for all. For everybody. That's a radical notion. It's for all of us to love and to treat well. Jesus said, you've heard, love your enemies, or love your neighbors and friends, but I say unto you, love your enemies. Do good to those who despitefully use you. If you're anything like me, I like to love people who are nice. And those who are kind of hard to get along with, well, I want to tolerate them. I learned when I was in graduate school that to tolerate means to abide with repugnance. I don't like the word tolerance. The family, the human family, doesn't need to learn to be more tolerant. We need to learn to love more and be more inclusive. And to love those that we perceive to be our enemies. Why? Because as Christians, Jesus said we ought to do it. Some people are satisfied with Christianity that simply addresses their own personal relationship with God. But that personal relationship and your personal understanding of God has to impact the way we interact with each other.